and then I'll do the formal introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Ty Adams, and I want to welcome you to TRA Marketplace 2020. Thank you for joining us today for Future of Travel. Please feel free to engage throughout by asking questions using the Q&A window below. Without further delay, I am excited to introduce our Big Ben stage sponsor, Texas Mutual.
In response to the pandemic, Texas Mutual will distribute $330 million in dividends to eligible policyholders 2 months ahead of schedule. We're also sending $2 million to nonprofits on the front lines of the COVID-19 effort. Better days are coming, but in the meantime, we'll be on the job helping Texas businesses. To learn how dividends are supporting employers in this time of need, go to texasmutual.com/dividends.
Awesome. We are so grateful for Texas Mutual. Awesome state partner. But to kick this session kicked off, I would like to introduce a wonderful, beautiful friend of the association, our moderator, Ms. Vanessa Miller.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much. And thank you, Texas Mutual, for your wonderful sponsorship of everything you do for us. Again, I'm Vanessa Miller. I am the Director of Special Events for the County Line Barbecue Restaurants. Been in the hospitality industry for 24 years and absolutely love our industry and just want everyone to continue to hang on, and we're going to thrive once again. So we have a great topic today, but I'm going to go ahead and let each of my panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Dan Decker. I know it says David on his Zoom. We're not quite sure why it says that, but Dan, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great, well, thank you. I'm Dan Decker. I'm the president and CEO of the Texas Travel Alliance and also the executive director of the Texas Commercial Airports Association. Been in the industry for 38 years, 12 of those here in Texas. Actually, I'm sorry, 16 of those here in Texas, 12 of those as president and CEO of SeaWorld San Antonio, Aquatica, and Discovery Point. I was with SeaWorld and Anheuser-Busch with the beer company for a total of 26 years before I joined the Texas Travel Alliance 4 years ago, and have enjoyed every part of it. Have worked in hospitality in states in New Mexico, Wyoming, and Florida, Virginia, California. I think that covers all of them as well. So that's my quick bio.
Wonderful, wide scope of knowledge from all the different states, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much, Dan. And we'll go over to Scott Joslove. Let us know about you.
I'm Scott Joslove. I'm president and CEO of the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. I've been CEO now for 20 years as of this April. And I come with a background. I have a master's in city management and a law degree. I used to work for municipalities. I was chief of municipal affairs for the Attorney General and lead attorney for the Texas Municipal League. And at THLA, we have myself, I'm a lawyer, and we have a staff of 3 additional lawyers that provide a lot of our operational and regulatory assistance for all of our members.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're just going to go ahead and start right now. Where is travel right now? And then we'll dive into what you guys think travel is going to look like once things recover. So I'll go ahead and start with you, Scott, and Dan, you guys just chime in and do what you do.
Well, it's not an easy time for hospitality overall, as we all know. Our hotels, which typically are 55 to 75% occupancy throughout the state, had all projected for record years for 2020. Well, we did achieve record year. Unfortunately, it was in the wrong direction with record low occupancies. And many of my larger hotels, convention center hotels, full service hotels, we're seeing 5 to 20% occupancy during the week. That's not to operate a hotel, you have to have at least 50% occupancy. on an average basis in order to pay your bills. At 5 to 20%, you're nowhere near that. During weekends with the summer, we're seeing occupancies anywhere from 40 to 75%. If you have a pool, or if you're in a resort area, or you're part of sort of an outdoor experience, if you will, in some of those more transient vacation locations. So weekends are a little better. We're concerned, of course, because what happens when summer travel is done and schools open and families are no longer able to travel together. So that weekend business will likely dissipate at that time. So right now, travel, what we're seeing is truckers are still traveling. Amazon and all the deliveries, UPS, et cetera, they're all on the road constantly. So truckers are staying in our highway hotels. We have extended stay hotels, over 30-day stay hotels. Those are still doing well because those are permanent residences for many, many people. A lot of people don't realize that in a community, if you have a credit issue or some sort of other issue that prevents you from getting housing in a typical apartment or house rental, often a hotel is the place where you need to transition. And so those extended stay hotels are staying busy. Like I indicated, our resorts are busy for the time being. Corpus Christi, Galveston, also areas like Fredericksburg. Some of our rural areas that were not as impacted by the coronavirus are doing okay. Their business stayed relatively stable with construction and insurance. And then, of course, staycations within Texas through the remainder of this summer period, which is just about up. People are anxious to get out. They want to travel. Where they're not staying, unfortunately, is our larger hotels, our convention center properties, a lot of our downtown properties. I was in downtown Houston, and it was like a ghost town, and both in terms of the restaurants as well as the hotels. So that's where they are now. Do you want me to talk about where, well, why don't we turn it over to Dan at this point to talk statuses with attractions, and then we can maybe go to where we anticipate recovery will be and what will be the first signs of recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So looking at all the data that's out there and kind of looking back through the pandemic, 73% of consumers have changed or canceled their travel plans now and for the next 6 months. And this number has dropped slightly since April, but has largely gone unchanged since much of this started. So even with the ebbs and flows of case numbers and death rates and those types of things, consumers changing or canceling still remains high, and it remains pretty static. Most consumers are looking at the CDC and federal health officials, according to surveys, for their information, less traditional media and more from really officials that are sharing that. And so 36% of residents that understand disagree with opening or even promoting their destinations to visitors. And we think that'll be indicative as well of what happens at the legislative session come next year. There's, as Scott mentioned, a growing sentiment to stay home for vacation. A lot of people doing that through the summer. And a Destinations Analyst survey says that 51% of respondents are currently working strictly from home. 81% of those folks would ideally like to continue doing so when the economy reopens. So most of them still believe that they'll be back by the end of the year, but want to stay home. So so that's important. Weekly travel spending for the state and for local was down 40%. Is down 40% now. Was down at a peak of 89% versus prior year when back in the May timeframe. So so with that, attractions are seeing significantly reduced numbers. They're imposed to keep at a 25% of capacity rate. They're seeing versus prior year about 80% down from that, so 20% total. They haven't even reached the 25% peak yet when it comes to going to an attraction. When I talk about attractions, I'm talking about theme parks, zoos, beaches, aquariums, all kinds of places. Now, I mentioned beaches and certainly public parks and those types of things. even those are finding difficulty in social distancing. Example of Port Aransas, you're not allowed to drive on the beach anymore. In fact, to get to the beach means climbing sand dunes and those types of things with your beach chairs and that type of thing. So very difficult time of where we are right now. With that, I also mentioned that I'm executive director of the Texas Commercial Airports Association. And so you've probably seen that a lot of people are going on flights. Surveys tend to say that about 12% of consumers are flying versus prior year. The TSA numbers are actually higher than that. So these are people passing through TSA on a daily basis. Right now, about 30% of the people that were going through TSA last year are going on flights. So we're seeing higher numbers in airports, certainly around Texas, than what the airlines are saying are flying as well. So
that's interesting. Well, it definitely is kind of sad, but I think you guys have some good information for us as for the future. You know, when things start to recover, what do you guys predict is going to happen? I'll start with you, Scott.
Recovery, it's none of us have a crystal ball, and all of us have great aspirations and hope. I will tell you this, the recovery looks a lot brighter because we get to work with Emily Knight and the team at TRA. She's been wonderful through this whole pandemic as we've been looking at opportunities to work with the governor, opportunities to work on regulatory orders and resources for the hospitality industry. We had a scenario in Austin recently on the use of hotel tax. And I just called Emily and I talked to the TRA team and said, we need your support. Talked to a gentleman named Skeeter Miller, you may have met him, and everybody was on board to say, yeah, you need us to make sure they keep the uses of the hotel tax pure to promote tourism and hotel activity. We will be there to partner with you. We don't want to have opportunists where basically there's no money for tourism because it's going everywhere else. So that's going to be part of the equation, is protecting the funds at the state level, protecting the funds that promote tourism at the local level. And as recovery starts to happen, when we start to see hospital capacities not as challenged, when we don't see as big a surge, we will start seeing people beginning to get out more and doing more business travel. We'll see people going ahead and scheduling small meetings, athletic events, especially events can be held outside, as well as weddings. People have been postponing their weddings or doing very small family gatherings, but people would really like to celebrate the things that are important to them and make sure that they have person-to-person meetings. I think, though, realistically, until we have a vaccine, that recovery is going to be on a very, very gradual basis. And the concern is that it may ebb and flow, because if we have, with the schools opening and colleges opening and kids gathering, and I have a nephew who's going to University of Kansas, and he can't wait to see his friends, and as smart as he is, he's not smart enough to keep social distance from any young lady. So, yeah, and I mean any young lady. And, so, he's not unusual in what we'll find in college campuses. I'm already seeing news reports of big parties and gatherings without masks, without social distancing. So not surprisingly, you're seeing a surge in COVID cases amongst younger adults. And I was on a call the other day with the chief operating officer of the COVID strike force to reopen the economy, Mike Toomey. And he said, you know, Scott, if folks would stay home for 2 weeks, wear their mask, even in their home, stay the 6 feet away from other people and their families. If just for 2 weeks we would get that, where there was no travel, no leaving your house, staying at home, socially distanced, wearing a mask, we wouldn't have COVID in any meaningful extent. We know how to address it in terms of how to prevent it. And we just need to make sure that we do the best we can with the realities of needing to go to grocery stores and needing to go out to essential businesses. And of course, wanting to support the businesses that are there on a takeout basis or whatever basis is safe. So with flu season, we expect to see an additional surge. But the good news is people are wearing masks, so we're hoping that that'll minimize the ordinary flu incidents as well as COVID. So I think until we see a vaccine, I think it's going to be a very gradual and sporadic recovery. I think when we do see a vaccine and it starts being introduced to the overall population, I think the news is going to change. It's going to be talking about how many people are vaccinated, about people returning back to business, and airlines and restaurants and hotels and retail will start to recover fully. So I believe we'll see a vaccine. I'm very hopeful in the next 6 months. And as we see that, I think there will be brighter days ahead.
Scott, I think you're going to be the best person for something that did pop up. How are hotels pricing their daily rates with such low occupancy? Low to attract customers or high to make up loss for revenue?
Well, it depends on the area. If you're talking about resort locations, Galveston, South Padre Island, the rates are going to be higher because the demand is higher right now. People are flocking to beaches, they're flocking to outdoor spaces. And so those rates are not higher than they normally are during a summer, but they're certainly higher than anywhere else in the state. So those rates are high. They're not trying to make up for lost business as much as they are just getting their traditional summer full demand occupancy. In the rest of the state, we're seeing very, very low rates. And I mean, $59, $79, $99 a night. And they're not sustainable rates, but they're the rates you need to charge if you want to keep business. And the challenge with hotels, there's a law called the antitrust law that says that you cannot, as a hotel industry, say, hey, let's all keep our rates at a reasonable, let's not go under $79 or $99 because it's bad. It's easier to lower your rates than it is to ever increase them. And once you lower them, it's going to be very hard to get them back up. But we cannot coordinate it at the state level, nor can they visit with each other about how they price their commodities. I would assume the same is true of pricing hamburgers or barbecue and within the restaurant industry. You can't get a uniform price to prevent lower pricing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What can an Airbnb do to attract?
I think, well, one, if an Airbnb, if they're one of those unusual properties that has a pool, we see some Airbnbs are renting out simply their pools on an hourly basis. If they don't have a pool, but they have access to a river or to an outdoor area, they're going to want to focus on the open space because that's a real attraction. They're going to want to talk about their sanitary practices and whether or not they're allowing more than one family at a time within their structure and how that's accommodated in meals and in common areas. So B&Bs are doing okay. The short-term rental market overall, if you have a luxury home, especially if you have a home with a pool or other types of amenities, you're pretty busy right now during this summer family travel period. And people are a little hesitant to go to larger scale properties. So renting a home for some reason seems to be very, very popular at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan, I'd love your insight as far as what you think is going to happen with future travelers.
And so what we're seeing quite a bit is that, the overall likelihood to take a business or leisure trip has showed slight declines over the last month, probably with the wave of pandemic cases during the month of July. So 38% of respondents to an MMGY survey intend to make a domestic trip, domestic leisure trip, while 31% are likely to take a business trip during the next 6 months. So that's the current kind of response from those two places. There's a good news bit, and I looked at a destinations analyst report that asked a new question this last week. 20% of survey respondents said they were very likely to take a week-long vacation in October. So that's a good sign. I think people see that there may be some recovery as we enter into that. Now, I don't think they're taking into account maybe, and this is my personal view, as to what Scott said. Schools are starting. There's people that are bracing for a second wave. But with schools, what we've seen is that on average, about every year for the last 10 years or so, about 7% of students withdraw from school and go into homeschooling. That's kind of an average that goes on year to year. Already in July and the first part of August, that has increased by 15 times greater than has been in the past for kids being pulled out of public school and going into homeschooling. Maybe just a short-term trend, maybe a longer-term trend with a new normal. I'm not sure, and I have no way to tell, but that is certainly something that's happening quite a bit. But with those students staying at home, you know, there certainly is the opportunity to travel with families for educational value. So destinations that can promote the educational value and the unique experiences that they have in those destinations. This is a good time to do that and to be able to share those types of things. The other part of that is that there's a large perceived safety of traveling by car, and that continues to increase. People want to take a car versus a bus, train, or plane, and will likely travel longer or further. Now, we're all Texans here in Texas. We love to drive. 300 miles is nothing, but across the country, you know, 300 miles is kind of that stopping point for people. It's what they consider a day trip. And more people are considering driving longer than 3 miles, or I'm sorry, more than 300 miles for vacation. So that continues to increase. So seeing a lot there. Again, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and this is, I think, by personal nature, people wait till the end of summer and then realize, oh, we haven't taken a vacation yet. We better plan something. We better do something. Between that and the ebbs and flows of the pandemic, over the last week or so, more attractions, more beaches, more parks, kayaking trips, things that are allowed, because right now tubing's not allowed, and then of course bars as well. But those attractions that are out, they are seeing upticks, in some cases dramatic upticks. In one case, in most cases, water parks that are only open the 3 months of summer are seeing dramatic increases over the last 2 months, the last 2 weeks of people visiting. Not necessarily, they think, because things are getting better, but they have this kind of last chance to go and visit a water park before they close again. I mean, you can think about those small businesses. They survive on the 3 months of summer to extend themselves for the rest of the year. There are water parks that are open year round, but most of them, by and large, are open for a very short period of time. So, so I think there's some opportunities as we go through this until things recover fully to take advantage of them. You know, somebody mentioned a price for hotel rooms. What attractions are primarily seeing is there's not a lot of price sensitivity that they've seen in the past. People are not looking necessarily for deals, and in fact, people that are promoting discounts in some cases for attractions are seen as kind of being tone deaf to what's happening. The people that are traveling are empathetic to the workers that are taking care of attractions and places, and they want to not only visit but also reward them with their wallet, with their pocketbook. So even when promoting things, it's a very different message than deals and those types of things. Airlines are seeing that as well. They're seeing that they can increase their rates, whether it's by demand or because kind of what I call the empathy that's going on right now. They're able to do that. So. Yeah,
I think that's really interesting that you were mentioning, just you don't have to discount. You know, the travelers who are out there have that empathy. They want to spend appropriately. And I think that's important for our audience, because some of us are wondering if we should do coupons or if we should do some different things to draw people in. And if you're saying that the trend is that people have empathy and they want to spend appropriately, I think we need to be mindful of that with our pricing and not go too crazy, because we're suffering as a hospitality industry for sure.
Yeah, the marketers I talk to, and you know, we do a lot of work with marketing ourselves, is that people are more interested in, you know, certainly stress relief, unique efforts, you know, the educational value of traveling, and then of course ways to get out and remain socially distanced. So, you know, places that might have promoted that they're dark and romantic in the past really want to make sure that they're seen as light and open and spacious. That we've heard from consumers that promoting deals and discounts just sounds like you're not paying attention to what's going on as a business. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, I think that segues us really well into our next topic. And It's what will the travelers' expectations be? And I can go back to you, Scott, just to explain, you know, as people travel and are in our hotels, what are their expectations going to be, or currently as they're traveling a little bit to the resorts and things like that.
Well, the first expectation, of course, is they want to make sure that there are appropriate sanitation and safety provisions and protocols. And that's not only for the guests, but they want to see employees who have shields in front of them. They don't want to come into a business and say, why is this employee not protected and having to encounter hundreds of people, you know, throughout a week. Also from their own safety, if the employee doesn't have a plastic shield in front of them or isn't wearing a mask, then that employee is a potential transmitter of the virus to other guests. So on both levels, they want to make sure that it looks like when they come into contact with that employee and with the facility, there's every safeguard that you would do if you were running that establishment and more. We're seeing an effort by the hotels, not an effort, an initiative. It's called Safe Stay Initiative. And that's all the major brands have done that, where they have a certain level of standards for cleanliness, for cleaning in between guests and cleaning in between every guest transaction, having shields between the guests and employees, and all those types of protocols that are the best of the best by industry experts. So they adopted that, where all 10 major brands, hotel brands in the country, have all adopted that threshold level. And then they're now all competing with each other to exceed those thresholds. Some hotels are being certified by various independent companies. Others are doing other sorts of protocols that are enhancing cleanliness and sanitation. In addition, when folks are traveling, they want flexibility, because they don't know, A, if they may become ill, or if their plans may change because some loved one or somebody within their workspace may need them to fill a shift. And so they want to make sure that if they make a reservation, they can change the reservation. And so they want to see cancellation policies that are more flexible than they might have been in the past. And attrition policies that if you're going to book a meeting or an event, we don't know who's going to be able to fly, who's going to be able to travel, and who's going to be comfortable, whether it be a legal issue or a regulatory issue or just a personal conscience issue. So they want to see flexibility. So between those types of things, and also they want to know something that's really important is when you're traveling now, you go into a community, like I traveled to San Antonio 2 weekends ago. And the first question I thought about when I got to the hotel was, I wonder what restaurants are open and which restaurants are closed. I wonder what attractions are open and what museums and what other sorts of attractions I can go to that are still operating. And even some of our folks, unfortunately, have websites that haven't been updated to indicate that they're closed. And so you can go out there, and we want to avoid that wherever possible, so that when people have set expectations or plan a trip, they can achieve what they want to achieve. So I think there's an opportunity now for us to maximize that restaurants communicate with hotels as to, hey, these are our new operating office hours. We will deliver to hotels. We are providing special types of meals. I would maybe offer a friendly challenge that, well, you know, substantially discounting your rates isn't always a great idea, but there are travelers now who are traveling who have not traveled as much before, who are using relief money in order to get out a little bit with their family, or maybe take a first trip that they've done in a long time. There are also travelers who have limited funds right now in terms of they want to get out with their family before the summer is up, but they also have limited money for restaurant or attractions or for other types of experiences and hotels. So pricing sensitivity may still be a factor. And I think that we could do that and be sensitive to that. And a lot of people who have taken salary cuts, benefit cuts, and have limited income due to the COVID, and all businesses transitioning into this new economic normal. And so I think that I wouldn't say that we should all keep pricing, that everyone is great with supporting higher pricing, because it may or may not be the case in certain scenarios. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as far as guest expectations.
Absolutely. I just want to comment, and we kind of chatted about this yesterday between us, but with the County Line barbecue restaurants, our team, and we do have a restaurant on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, but we also have a restaurant in El Paso and restaurants here in Austin and more in San Antonio. So our team has a spreadsheet, and they call all of the local hotels within a 5 to 10 mile radius and figure out, you know, if they're open, and also just have a conversation about what we're doing. Exactly what you said, Scott. We have outdoor patio dining. We do take reservations. We have an amazing happy hour. We do deliver, or you can use a third party delivery. So, and we're calling on a weekly basis because you're going to catch a different person all the time. And we're calling on a weekly basis asking hey, what is your capacity right now? Is there anything we can do for you? Because we want that community to be strong. We want that person at the front desk to immediately say, oh my gosh, County Line has a wonderful patio, and actually it's happy hour right now, so you should head over there. And we've extended our happy hour, being price sensitive. It's something that we can do that it's, you know, affordable for us, but it also is, you know, might attract people who are on a budget. We also do an appetizer card. So I think there's great ways that our hotels and restaurants, and then we'll go over to Dan to talk about attractions, how we can partner, and what the expectation is for the guests. I appreciate you mentioning that.
So we won't repeat a lot of what Scott said, because, you know, everything he said was absolutely correct. But I think, you know, one phrase that comes to mind that's more true now than ever before is actions speak louder than words. So you can have all the signs that you want, and you can tell employees what to say all you want, but if it's not being acted out or shown, it's not being taken seriously. And so highly knowledgeable employees on procedures, an overemphasis on training is crucial, because all of us as customers, whether we go to an attraction or any place that we visit or travel to, are watching employees to see what they do. Do they have their face mask over their nose, or is it just over their mouth because they're being, you know, a little bit lazy about or lax about it? There is an incredibly high expectation for employees to be the ones policing customers. And that's a difficult position for any of us in the hospitality industry to be in. We are used to providing great customer service, not necessarily reminding customers what they're supposed to be doing as they do that, and possibly getting into conflict. Many of us in the hospitality industry try to keep our facilities low from a signage standpoint, yet customers are now expecting to understand where I'm supposed to stand, where I'm supposed to line up to do things, what seating is available and not available. And so we're seeing that in all over attractions and destinations that there's a lot of that going on. The one thing that I've heard quite a bit from our industry, from our attractions, from others, is that there are so many people trying to outthink and complicate a process of how to walk into a place, how to get what you need, how to walk out, whether it's lining up for a ride, whether it's going to, you know, restaurant, one of their theme parks, even of our water parks, how to adjust going on rides. That there is a lot of us in the industry really overcomplicating this and really thinking about it. Tape all over the floors, directional arrows, people running into each other because they're having a hard time. It's not intuitive, those types of things. So there's a lot of that going on, and I suggest that, you know, I know everybody from an attraction standpoint that we've talked to is going back and making sure that they're doing it the right way. That's the most intuitive for customers. But I would say that's something that people could go back and look at. Last thing I'll touch on is that I have a good friend that runs a marketing company that also handles rewards efforts for a lot of major retailers. And in a conversation that we have, he shared that touchless payment has advanced 10 years over the last 3 months. Just the technology side. I don't want to confuse anybody. The technology side of touchless payment has advanced dramatically during this. So that's one of the things that's happened. What hasn't advanced, and what will take some time and certainly is lagging, is both businesses and consumer acceptance to this. I think that we're going to see over the next year a large evolution in touchless payment. I know probably all of us have thought about that and certainly discussed it within our own facilities. But the technology barrier, I believe, as I understand, is not the thing keeping it from moving forward now. It's really the acceptance by all of us to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, we, just for the county line, we do use the Toast system, and they have already given hardware to us for this touchless program. So Google Pay, Apple Pay is all ready to go. I think the younger generation is already ready for it. And, you know, our staff who is, you know, 20s to maybe 32, early 30s, they were already ready. They were like, this is amazing. Why haven't we had this, you know, 2-3 years ago? But I think it is going to take a little bit of time. I don't know if our, might even include myself, if I quite trust it. So I think you're right. We're going to have to do that. I wanted to touch on, as far as what restaurants in this partnership, I think we're going to open it up for a minute to our participants, and you can raise your hand. Ty is keeping an eye on people who want to comment, but I think it's really important for us to share best practices and understand what's working so we can all partner together and make sure that we're doing the right thing. I know that our team reaching out to our hotels has been incredible. We've actually had, you know, especially the Albuquerque, the restaurants can be open indoors, but our patios are open. So, and also the hotels were confused. So my team calling them on a regular basis saying, this is what we're doing. They're always grateful, and we're actually getting patio business from our hotels that, like Scott said, extended stays. I mean, these people are staying there for a long time and they want somewhere to go besides their little kitchen and extended stay. So knowing that our patio is open is very important. So I'd love to open it up. Ty, do you have anyone that would like to share?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to start with Dan. I have a question for you. Do you see travel increasing or decreasing with the openings of schools? And will it be affected by extended virtual periods or closures?
So I think there's a wait and see attitude, and you know, Scott mentioned it. As schools open, people are kind of pausing. I think as we get into the school year, is that going to create a second wave? So the people that have been comfortable with traveling, I think they're probably going to continue, and there's a fair amount doing that. I do think they're going to stay closer to home, travel by car, some travel by plane, as we see that increasing as well. But I do think there's going to be a pause period, if you will, over the next month or two to see what happens with that and see how that causes. Again, I think people are doing things very differently from a schooling standpoint. Lots of schools are educating remotely for the first 3 or 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. That takes a lot of parents who, whether they work or not, to stay home with their kids and and make sure that they educate them well and get used to the new process. I jokingly have said different home supplies have become the new toilet paper of what we saw in April. Desks for kids and totes for kids that keep all of their school supplies are in great shortage at a lot of retailers right now because everybody's trying to get those. And then as schools gradually open up, I think we may get back to a bit of new normal. But I would say, people are. I mentioned a stat earlier that 20% of survey respondents said they're very likely to take a week-long vacation in October. I think people are looking, maybe a couple of months ahead that maybe things will get better and they'll be able to make a decision about what to do a couple of months from now. But I think there's going to be that pause.
Maybe just need a break for their sanity if they're doing
Right.
But I was, I follow a lot of hotels and everything on social media, and I was mentioning Hotel Esencia, which is a beautiful hotel in Mexico, is offering, a beautiful villa and spa services and things like that included in this package. No discount on the price, but they're adding in extra value. And one of that was tutors that could tutor your children while you were staying at their hotel. And I thought that was very interesting. So getting creative and trying to draw maybe those October travelers is definitely what they're doing.
Awesome.
No, I would note the importance of just what you were talking about earlier, Vanessa. I had a hotel here in Austin, and the occupancy in a lot of our limited service hotels is not strong. But this hotel said we took our list of every customer we had over the last 3 years and their contact information. And we literally got on the phone with those folks and said, hey, we're open. Here's what we're doing. We'd love to welcome you back. They emphasize the types of customers like construction and corporate clients that could bring business back. And they said they bumped their occupancy up 30% by making that outreach. And they were doing that on a daily basis. They kept calling and calling. And they weren't calling the same person again and again after they had reached them. They were calling them to say, hey, this is what we're doing. We'd love to welcome you back. Our prices are competitive and we really offer a safe opportunity. So I think you're going to reimagine your marketing strategy. It's sometimes it needs to be person to person contact where you're letting them know what this new experience will be about.
And for you, Scott, I have another one. What are your thoughts on long-term occupancy compared to short-term? And are people still weekending? Are they looking for longer, perhaps non-holiday booking?
I think they're looking for both depending on the client. I mean, there are folks who are saying, you know what, we're going to take, some people are quarantining and saying, you know what, if we're going to quarantine, we might as well go quarantine at a lake or by the river or by the beach. They are looking at safe places. So we have weekend stays. I think that's going to evolve as school goes back into session. I'm very concerned about, you know, what the numbers will be with school. I think we can pretty safely anticipate there'll be a surge amongst the young. And so if we're going to have classes and in-person events. So we have that factor that's going on, but I think you're going to see both in terms of long-term occupancy as well as weekending stays.
Got it. I have another one here. Any keywords you would recommend for SEO or marketing in this period?
Pool. I would use the word resort. If you are a resort, I would use the words beach. All the things that basically offer amenities, luxury, kind of people, like you said, want to escape, and then value as well. I mean, I know even with regard to experiences I'm having, I'm eating out more than I've ever eaten out from the standpoint of ordering food in. And there's a certain point where I think I feel a little guilty, like, oh, I'm eating out again or I'm ordering in. And then I start looking for where are the value opportunities where, and that's where I appreciate when they say they have a 4-person brunch or this, where you get a little bit of extra value for whatever you're ordering. So I think when people are ordering out that much or have to take in that much, and they may have reduced income, I think value opportunities. So value ought to be part of that search mechanism.
Great.
I'll add a couple of comments to that. You know, so there's along with the pandemic, there's a lot of stress that builds up from all of this.
Absolutely.
So that indicates relaxation, stress relief, anything, any of those words that would indicate that in your marketing is certainly going to be helpful. Education, anything that indicates that you're able to take homeschool kids and go out and learn about something. And I realize that you know, some restaurants may not think they're educational facilities, but they can be. For various reasons. There's all kinds of ways businesses to become educational opportunities. And so it takes a bit of creative thinking on how to get through that, but that's important. Family interactions. And then, you know, this is hard, you know, these are some hard words to put into place, but you can think about how you would word them is unique individualized experiences. People that normally would have gone to where crowds were, concerts and those types of things are now looking for those individualized experiences like hiking, kayaking, horseback riding, things where they are definitely going to be away from somewhere else, naturally 6 feet away or further than normally would be. So those kind of highly individualized experiences.
And do you guys see conventions coming back, which you just mentioned concerts? Do you guys see conventions coming back live, full strength over the next couple of years, or having to adapt more to more virtual means going forward?
I would argue we're going to see both. I think we're going to see certain smaller meetings that they might have a day or two that they'll do virtually. But I think the need to meet and the need to have large gatherings and client interface is not going to go away. It's just paused. And so I think once we have a vaccine, once we have a normal sort of you know, herd immunity, I think that we're going to see a return to travel. I don't think convention centers are going to be collecting cobwebs, or convention center hotels are no longer going to have business. I think that as we get a return to normalcy, we will return. There's a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of meetings that mean a lot to folks and mean a lot, not only to the hotels and the convention centers, but to restaurants and retails, and more importantly, to the businesses that hold these meetings. If they could do it virtually and be as effective, they would have been doing that before. They know the value of person-to-person exchanges and going out to dinner and having a personal experience. I see there's a question I might note about the use of the hotel tax in the chat box as to whether or not a portion of the hotel tax could be redistributed, maybe to local businesses or to restaurants or to retail. The challenge with the local hotel tax is back when it was enacted, there were a number of industries that could have been within it. And there could have been restaurants, there could have been attractions, there could have been other tourism businesses. But the only businesses that contribute to the hotel occupancy tax are hotels. So that fund is dedicated that it has to promote hotels. The good news is when you promote hotels, you can't promote hotels without promoting restaurant activity. And when you promote hotels and restaurant activity, you're going to have a beneficiary being attractions and other tourism venues. So the good news is when you promote hotel activity, you're going to achieve that result without requiring restaurants or attractions that contribute anything towards that fund. So I don't see them changing the dedication of those funds because it wouldn't quite be fair if you have one industry contributing to a fund and then another industry saying, we're not going to contribute, but we'd like to tap into it. So I think if there was a point where restaurants said, hey, we'd like to make it a tourism tax and we'd contribute, you contribute, we could all dip into it. I think that's not likely to happen. So at this point, I think there'll be indirect benefits, which I think will be all the value without any of the burden.
Wow. Thank you guys so much. This concludes our time for the future of travel. We would like to thank everyone, Ms. Miller, Scott, Dan, you guys have been wonderful, and everyone that tuned in. Be sure to check out the rest of our stages today and sessions. Wonderful information going forward with some awesome speakers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.